First, on behalf of the entire Atlanta Police Department, I want to offer my sincere condolences, thoughts, and prayers to all the victims and their families that were impacted by this event. So in just a moment, I'm going to provide a little bit of detail of the incident that took place in the early morning hours of July 5th at 210 Auburn Avenue, which ultimately resulted in the deaths of Erica Robinson and Joshua Ingram. I'm also going to provide a little bit of the investigative insight that allowed us to make our first arrest in this case. And finally, I'm going to present some photographs, as you see on the monitors behind me, of some individuals who I'm hoping that we can get identified with the assistance of the public. So on the 4th of July into the early hours of July 5th, there was a large gathering that took place along the Auburn Avenue corridor. At some point, we know that that incident ultimately resulted in the death of 2 individuals as well as the injury of 13 others. Concluding this incident, we were able to go through and look at some surveillance footage, and we noticed that initially, prior to 2 a.m., that this entire event seemed nonviolent. So one of our first objectives was to identify a turning point or an incident that took place that changed the dynamics of this incident, ultimately leading to the shooting. And we were able to identify our suspect who was arrested in this case, DeAndre Brown. Mr. Brown was conducting a series of reckless driving events at the intersection of Auburn Avenue and Jesse Hill Jr. Drive. Throughout the process of that reckless driving, his blue Camaro struck 2 vehicles and then hit a pedestrian who was standing in that intersection. Mr. Brown exited his vehicle, had a brief conversation with an individual, and then proceeded to produce and point a firearm at a male who was standing out there. Immediately following that aggravated assault of pointing a weapon at another individual, multiple individuals in the crowd, and these gentlemen that you could see on the monitors behind me, opened fire, resulting in the deaths of Erica Robinson and Joshua Ingram. So I'm happy to announce that on September 10th, we were able to secure arrest warrants for Mr. Brown. And on the 13th, he was actually taken into custody by our Zone 2 patrol units up on Sidney Marcus Boulevard. And although I'm pleased to be able to provide some answers to the family and a little bit of closure, there's still a lot of work we have to do in this case. And so with that, if I could draw your attention to the monitors above me. So here you'll see 4 individuals circled with the red highlights. So I'm hoping that someone out there may have some information as to the identity of these individuals, and that those people will be willing to come forward and provide us with that information. In addition, we know there were many witnesses on scene. Numerous of them we have not had the opportunity to speak with. So I'm asking if anyone has any information, if there are witnesses, or they have heard anything regarding this event, that they would please come forward and provide that information. And hopefully we'll be able to continue to provide more closure to these grieving families. Any questions?
So this whole corridor in Auburn, you guys have had a lot of trouble with this in the past, correct?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, the street in general where this is happening on Edgewood in that Sweet Auburn area, how much of a problem area is it for APD to control? We know every weekend there's lots and lots of car races there, multiple shootings there throughout the month. Just give us a little bit of how you guys are trying to tackle that.
So obviously the car issue is a concern, and it's something that the department as a whole has put great efforts into addressing. And in fact, the arrest in this case is a result of those efforts. Mr. Brown was actually apprehended while partaking in more street racing events. So it wasn't just the officers acknowledging and being present for the street racing activity. It was their level of engagement and proactive enforcement what led them to the discovery that Mr. Brown had these outstanding warrants. Other questions?
Was he shooting people at this scene, or he just was seen walking with a gun?
So each individual that you see in these photographs, we know that they did each discharge a firearm. And that's why it is critically important that we get these individuals identified and have the opportunity to speak with them.
Do we know if any of these ones are the ones that struck the people who died subsequently?
So I think based on the complexity and the sheer amount of gunfire, we may never know which individual actually fired the fatal rounds. So we don't know that. We do know that they were shooting in the direction where our victims were located. Any other questions?